afternoon to all of you after lunch. I know it's very difficult to sit after lunch. So, as mentioned by the curators, that we have to talk our surfaces beyond architecture beyond surfaces. So I would like to, just run through my presentation on the facade and the high rise, and what importance is of the materials that we choose to make a facade. And if we see the facade of a high-rise building, it holds an immense potential in influencing our perception of the entire built form. As the presentation was done by Kushbu, that how the overall impact was there in terms of the perception of the built form. And the design of the building's exterior can shape its identity, Always when you come up with a facade, you can always come up with the identity of a building. Sometimes it becomes a signature project, like what we have seen in many of the projects when we are actually fascinated by the overall facade of the building. May it be a parametric structure, may it be a straight lines, but we actually understand that the materials plays a very important role in the overall, beautification of the facade. And the design of building's exterior can shape its identity, as I mentioned. It makes it more powerful. It makes a statement, to the entire build form. And definitely this happens with the innovation of new materials. And if we explore the potential of facade designing, as was being presented in the last presentation, that the architecture was done by someone else and you come up with the facade development. So it is altogether a different science, when you do a facade development. Many times it happens that, whatever internal planning you're having with you, but, the facade can absolutely respond, or it can, interpret it in a different fashion. So it gives you, the facade basically intends to give you a visual identity of that building. And facade can uplift the entire neighborhoods if it is on a high rise, if you have a good header, a good crown over the building, it can come up as a sense of vibrancy, and sometimes, it can be a reflection of the culture if it is a contextual architecture. So, what are the ideation process? I think it was almost kind of covered in the last presenter, but, it can be categorized into 4 different heads, according to me. First is, it is to reimagining the entire visual identity. Because whenever you think of facade, you always think in terms of a visual identity of that entire built form. So first thing is, you have to reimagine the entire visual identity. Second, if we talk about, green and sustainable architecture, so we have to respect the energy efficiency, when we make a facade. What kind of glass we are using, is there a screen wall? Is there a certain insulation being done? So it actually enhances the energy efficiency, because most of the architects these days are actually working on this concept also when they do facade. And when, as mentioned by Kushbu, that when you have to do certain greenwashing, to the building, there are certain materials that gives you certain points which finally give you that building a green rating by IGBC or GREHA or by USGBC, without any offense, but it happens. So you have to be very judicious in selecting the materials, so it can your facade can actually become a very energy efficient facade. Then definitely to incorporate the sustainable practices. If you go to the parts of Rajasthan, if you see the facade, there are a lot of jalis, which was there with a reason. So because, the wind travel through those small holes, the jali, you get a pressure change, and finally there is a difference in the temperature. So if we really understand the incorporating the sustainable practice in our vernacular architecture, I think it was respected more than what we architects are doing today. Because and in those times, there were less, platter of the material to develop the entire facade, and our forefathers or ancestors were very judicious, in selecting the overall facade material, because we were not having that powerful air conditioning system, the gadgets, the electrical gadgets were not there. And so they used to maintain their facade and try to give a sustainable, approach to the entire facade designing. This is what have been done in Jaipur. If you see Hawa Mahal for that matter, like they have given slitter windows, and if you stand, since I am from Jaipur, if you stand on the other part of the Rajasthan, trust me, you are going to get much powerful wind, than a temperature of 21 degree, which a air conditioner could give you. So that was actually a judicious approach. But where what we architects are doing these days, definitely see, since I don't mean that we should not go on the urban fabric, but at the same times when you design a facade, there has to be a respect to the local climatic condition. So it gives you a sustainable, fundamentals and the principles which need to be incorporated in the design. And now definitely another ideation can come from embracing technological advancements. I say, I am using the dynamic louvers in a building. For example, always there are certain clients which ask you, there has to be certain iconic building which actually catches your eye. And as Anupam mentioned in his presentation, there are certain dynamic facade, So you can take use of your certain technologies which are available now. So these are basically, according to me, are the 4 categories which actually tends to develop a facade. So, and first we'll talk about, as I mentioned, reimagining a visual identity. We have got lots of things which our 15, 20 years way back we were not having. Now we are using GRC as a material, which can give you any form. We are having a lot of glasses, with different ULUs, high performance glass, where even if you are using in a southern direction, you can use those glass, and it will not give you that insulation. Metal, definitely, as we see, there's a lot of innovation in a combination of a glass and a metal, which gives you a different kind of a facade. And there can be certain sustainable alternatives, as I mentioned, usage of jali or something like that. But whatever materials you use and whatever visual identity you want to create to a facade, it has to be very judicious, as I mentioned. So this is just an inspiration, my inspiration from an office building in Madrid, in Spain, which gives you a different kind of a, visual identity. Now, if I talk about enhancing the energy efficiency in a building, you can use the insulated panels, you can use high performance glazing, and you can reduce your energy consumption and contribute towards the sustainability. So this is one example, one building in Zurich, and now incorporating the sustainable practices, as I mentioned, so usage of the jalis in the hot and dry climate, wherever it's, so it actually reduces the overall carbon footprint, and it gives you a healthier urban ecosystem. So this is an apartment in Iran. I think most of you must have heard about the wind towers in Iran also, the way in which they have erected the entire wind towers, and you actually can feel the difference without using of air conditioners, a difference of 7 to 8 degree of temperature. And embarrassing the technological advancement, as I mentioned, there can be certain dynamism in the overall facade. If you see the Manhattan in the daytime, for that matter, Times Square in the daytime, and what you see in the nighttime is different, absolutely different. It becomes, because of that digital usage of the LED walls and all, altogether you get a different facade and different ambience and a different experience in the night. So this is all what your technology can do to improve your facades. So now I'll just try to give few examples from our project. Ours is more of a commercial kind of a practice, which I have no hesitation in admitting that. So I'll just start with my one project, which we are almost on the verge of completion. It is Hotel Raffles in Jaipur, next to the Fairmount. If you see the structure, which is just behind, so this was the erected structure, and the client came up with a brief that, yes, I want my design language has to be absolutely in, this style of architecture, but at the same time, say, I don't want symmetry. Then actually I tried to understand the facade of Fort Amer, which was not a symmetrical kind of architecture. At the same time, if you understand, if you talk about this kind of a design language, you will majorly find a kind of a balanced structure. One chhatri this side, another chhatri this side. One chhatri in the bottom, or the entrance has been highlighted. But if you see the Amer fort, it was actually a asymmetrical kind of architecture and the design language. So it gave us an inspiration. So we tried to maintain this, which was constructed with 15 years. It was the spa of the Fairmount, and we actually did this entire facade in the Rajputana style of architecture using those elements, but it was an asymmetrical architecture. And this was a certain, interior codes. They are it's just on the verge of completion. Then again, the thing was like I couldn't able to achieve because the time was less. It was just 2.5 years was given to us to make this project. So there were lots of articulation and the ornamental work, which we actually wanted from stone. But since the time was a constraint, then yes, GRC was the material available to with me. So we did this with GRC. So how the materials can actually give you flexibility in terms of executing your designs. So this is again this we have done in GRC, but I always wanted either in the concrete or in the stone, since stone was a constraint. So we did this facade in the GRC. This was again done in RCC. Then we cladded the entire with because my client in that case, because of the design team, which was from the Accor group of hotel, they say, why can't you create some glimpses of Taj Mahal? Because whenever they see this kind of architecture, they don't understand it's a Mughal architecture or a Rajputana style of architecture. They say, why can't you have those small pieces of marble cladding on that? And then actually it came to our idea. Yes, we are from the state of marble, where these small panels of marbles. So we cladded the entire this thing with a very low cost marble, and it was Raffles. This is how it has come up, it cladded there. Now, the very idea of this project showing to you is that yes, I played with the stone wherever it was needed, where it was saving my time. I played with GRC and finally tried to get the same, harmony in the total design language. Now, another project which we are going to show you is this is the second highest temple in the world after Vrindavan. The total height is 72 meters. It's in Jaipur. Almost we are done with the Shikhar. We are started doing the Shikhar part. And according to us, it was like, again, our clients, they wanted a different kind of a cultural complex. It was not a temple. So they were very flexible to understand any kind of a design language, We tried at our level to develop this in a blend of, traditional, which you can see, because we have hired the same Sompura architects who designed the Ram Mandir temple, the inner part of the temple, and certain, articulation or the relief work, which we are not good at. If they want to celebrate the different Leela of Krishna through some sculpture or GRC or stone, we cannot do that. So they are going to help us out for that. And at the same time, if you see the structure above 22, 23 meters, the structure, entire structure, which is going at a height of this Shikhar is at a height of 36 meters. So we did clad it with this, glass structural glazing, which was a modern structural glazing. And at the same time, if you see this lower bottom portion, so it was kind of a Hathi Hoda, they call it in their language. And basically there was it was not a parikrama, it was a Harinam Jap, where there were 108, blocks of 2 feet by 2 feet, where they can, chant their mantras and all, and they can walk on the 108, this thing. So again, now, we wanted this in certain parametric structure, so it is a kind of a showcase, or it is an entrance to the entire build form. So we are still contemplating with this kind of this thing, and this is the overall this thing. This is from this thing. Again, like I am taking the help of certain Sompuras for this part of the facade. So the very idea of showing this project was, it was very difficult for us to blend the modern elements of architecture, the traditional, and the parametric at a very minimalistic, scale. But I think we try to, since the project is about to complete, it's going to go up in December 2026. So we are just on the verge, because it was a great challenge. So I just wanted to show you us. Now, another project which we are doing just bang opposite to Jaipur airport is this. So this is again a very high-end apartments which will be there with a hotel called Planet Hollywood. So we are doing that. And I just wanted to show you this project. There's nothing, magic in this. But the thing is that how did I develop it with the materials? Again, GRC was a strong tool for me. If I'm going to show you the exact pic of the facade. So I erected all the structure, which was giving, because my contractors cannot work with this kind of detailing. Otherwise, there will be a lot of initial cost computation kind of a problem in the initial designs. Always you'll ask, if I go to give it to a civil contractor, I will ask, the cost. He will also outsource this to some guy, and this will be a problem. So we did entire structure in a very straight line format where the beams are coming and this thing. And then we, kind of a skin or give a skin to the entire facade. So this is the overall view. This is just bang opposite to Jaipur airport, and almost this the overall. Now, this is the same structure, which I'm going to get the same feel. So this was the structure. A very plain, simple structure, so that it becomes very easy for me to execute, in terms of getting the civil work done. And then the entire, work was given to a GRC contractor. So the reason I'm, what I want to show, to tell you is that we have been blessed now with a lot of materials flexibility, because otherwise, if I would have created such neoclassical structures, the way in which my ancestors have done it would have been very difficult for me. Because, the selection of materials would have been definitely a kind of a threat to me or a challenge to me. But these days, the materials are so flexible, you've got so much of flexibility, and I think all the younger lots, you're blessed, because you can really, try to implement your ideas, to maybe to facade, or for that matter, any architecture, you have got all the tools with you. I call it a tool, basically. So this is how, the power of material is. So even if you choose any material, you can how you judiciously use it and put it in your facade, and you can come up with certain very nice visual impacts. This is how the building is going to come like. Now, I was discussing with my friend, this was a different kind of a building. This is one building which we are coming in Ajmer. Total height is 35 floors. And the client was with only one brief. He was a he was not a builder, so he wanted to celebrate his architecture, by virtue of creating an iconic building. So he first showed me that, tried to create Marina Bay Sands. Then he showed me that atmosphere building of Kolkata, He said, I want this building. I said, what has to be planned inside? Well, no, that is your lookout. I give it a damn, what you design from inside, but I want a very iconic facade. It was like a challenge for me. What we did is in this thing, since I was not very good in, kind of this kind of architecture, which I don't know whether you call it parametric or not, but, it was like, this thing. So I just came up with a very simple concept, that since, because all the upper floors are the studio apartments and the hotel block. So I couldn't have that courage to change my plans on every floor, to change the core. I didn't have that courage. So I kept my cores intact. And then I thought that why not to play with the cantilevers, So I tried to make different 35 floor plans, So so first I developed a section, and then I realized that there was, mathematics involved into it. So I made different plans for every floors, and then, try to wrap it. So what I did is this, just try to wrap it. And then I saw that in SketchUp whether I'm going to achieve this form or not. And finally, when I rendered it in the visual, it finally came. But now after this challenge will be that I will be doing that in my RCC structure, but ultimately execution is going to be a threat or a problem for me. So, there can be certain friends who specialize in the facade, they can give me certain, anchoring with the Hilti or the MS work, and then I can create the entire structural glazing to it. So now the challenge will be at the top floor. This, I've got friends who specialize in the parametric structure who can help me out for this. So this is how the overall concept of the building was. started with a very simple concept, of if you want to get a twisted building, make the floor plans different, at different levels. So only the cantilevered portion of the floor was changing. That's it. So I try to make it very simple. Now again, blank facade with blank structure. Clad it, get this. Thanks to GRC. So this is what the power of material is, If you do a simple facade, this we'll be doing recently a building in Panchkula, the client was very clear, what a subtle, very straight line architecture. Again, what could I have done with the header, the crown, what you call it, just do crowning to the entire building. Another building which we are coming up in Jaipur. Nothing wow in this, but I wanted to show you that how the materials, the combination of different materials, certain dead facade on the right hand and the left hand side, with certain structural glazing elements, and with certain see-through glass at the bottom as per the usage, because they were the commercial spaces. So this is how the materials give a power to your entire facade. Again, you can play these were the, I tried to, this building already been completed 5 years back. It was a IT building. So again, I wanted these louvers, dynamic louvers. But again, the cost was a constraint to my client. Then finally I realized, let's keep the louvers. So this louvers, the combination of the structural glazing, the glass work, the concrete structures, the breakout zones at different levels, and a kind of a linearity to the entire facade. So the materials has given me this flexibility to come out with such facades. Again, there was ACP available to me, so I just did the crowning, because otherwise I would have ended up in getting a execution problem. Again, a facade just with a simple civil work. That's it. Just this facade is being, the foreign material which is there is just the louvers. That's it, the MS louvers. You can do, with the help of texture paint. This was just a plain brick wall being considered in this same manner. Just we painted it through a texture paint. And try with definitely with certain aluminum louvers on the left hand side. Now this was a very small project where, that I should get a feel of a school. It was a pre-primary school. So then I say I want to play with something in fleshy colors, So the material available to me was aluminum, or for that matters, MS we can use, then painted that. Because otherwise, getting such materials 15 years way back or 20 years way back was not possible. A lot of innovations has been done in all the material selection. So such structures have started emerging on this earth, and that's why we are getting different architecture, and the different materials and all this thing. And I think the conclusion is the potential of materials, especially on the high-rise facade, is boundless now, as they possesses the power of breathing into the new lives and the buildings, because now everyone is so fancy about different design language, and by harnessing this potential, building actually can become iconic, that symbolizes the rich fabric of the city, because every city, every architect want his or her building to stand out, and basically, it can give a new dimension to the architecture. But at the same time, we should know the power of each materials, and we should use it judiciously, is what I can say. Thank you so very much.